there's a competition happening between frogs. They have to climb up from the bottom of the well to the top of the well. And the walls of the well are very slippery. And slowly, there are other frogs watching from outside and cheering them on. And slowly, one frog after the other keeps falling off. There's one frog that finally makes it to the top. So obviously, where people go to the frog and say, almost interview style, like, what aapke success ka raaz kya hai? And they don't get a reply from the frog. And they repeat the question and there's still no reply. And then they realize the frog is deaf. So the frog did not hear any of the demotivating remarks, did not lose focus.
Wow.
And I think that I keep telling myself time and again.
Wow.
That you have to be like the deaf frog.
So Vidya, I'm very excited to be talking to you. It's a privilege on behalf of everyone in this country, and it's at least in the entrepreneurial startup ecosystem. We are huge fan of yours. Everyone loves you, and especially as a woman, we feel wow. Now we have someone so cool and someone so authentic and real. And when I was just thinking that we're going to be chatting with you, one of the things that came to my mind for you and Vidya Balan that comes to mind is this quote by E E Cummings. You would have heard is that. In a world where every day and night, people are trying to change you to be someone different, but to be yourself and nothing else is the hardest thing. And you've done it, and you've done it so beautifully, so successfully, and so amazingly that we are all very proud of you. Tell us, what does it mean to be you and to be so authentically you for the last 14 years?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me on your show, for having invited me, and for this lovely introduction. My head has just expanded. Any more, and it may have exploded.
Absolutely
thank you.
No.
No, but thank you.
There's this thing I was reading, Meryl Streep has said that acting is not about being someone different. It is finding similarity in what is apparently different, then finding myself in there. I want to ask you about your process, because your every work is so phenomenal. So how do you go about looking at acting and your choices?
Thank you. I think, she has really summed it up so beautifully. I haven't read this quote of hers, but I do think that's what it is. When I started out, I wanted to be different people. But I think there is just one me. So that becomes a little impossible to achieve. So the closest thing you can really do is find points of identification and, differences between that person and you, and embrace both. And when I think this also requires some amount of acceptance of the other person. It requires that you don't judge the other person's motivations and choices, and if you do, then I don't end up doing the film. But if I'm able to see where that person is coming from, then I think at some point, those differences and those points of identification just, I think, it's almost like it seeps into my skin. I don't know. She's put it across beautifully, but I think it's the same thing that I'm trying to say.
There's so much of conversation about women getting women-centric roles, and women are coming up now, their roles being written. But for you, with you, I think it happened very early on that you started doing roles which were in a way redefining Hindi cinema. So was it a very conscious choice on your behalf, or was it something that happened?
No, I don't think it was a conscious choice, but I'm someone who gets bored very easily. So I think, I'm constantly looking for new challenges. For me, I want to be a different person every time I play a role. And having said what I did, about acting, when I say different person, it's tap into that part of me, because there are different people within me. So I want to explore a new facet of me with every role. If I'm going to explore the same facet again and again, then what am I doing for the role, or what is the role doing for me? I think, like, I've just played the mathematician, the human computer, Shakuntala Devi, and she's probably the most complicated and complex woman I have come across, or rather not come across, I have played. I think so. This, when you're when it's not really easily decipherable, when the person's motivations are sometimes not easily understandable for you, or their choices are not the most obvious choices, that's what makes the person so much juicier for me to play. So I think it's that need to do something different. It's that need to, like I keep saying, it's almost like I feel every role that I choose, every role that I've done has almost been an extension of my state of mind at that point. It's almost like my work is furnishing me answers. It's almost like without romanticizing it, or being dramatic, I think it's almost a spiritual process. It's almost a healing process.
In Dirty Picture, there's this thing where you act and then you just take over your, Nasruddin Shah's, people are watching his movie, but they go and then start watching yours. That La song begins or whatever, or the music. And I was watching this in PVR, some very fancy PVR location in Delhi, with a very elite set of audience, and everyone started clapping and jumping and whistling, which you see single theater, but you don't see it in multiplex. But that you did. But what I wanted to bring your attention, and I'm sure many people would have told you, is that in some way the roles that you've taken have given so much of, if I may say, it has been such a powerful help and a support for so many women across this country, because there's no singular voice that women have. There's so much facet to them, and I think you've taught or retaught the women and young girls to be okay and to be beautiful and I think that is such a powerful thing that you've done through the cinema. Besides so many, giving us good movies and good experiences. But that's something I think that stays. Again, is this a choice? Is this something that you've become aware during the course of movies that you've been doing? Or is it something, again, that has come and now you hear about it?
What's interesting is that these are not questions I've been asked before, so I'm actually having to think about
you. And I'm asking a question, you can see and
Thank you. No, I think I think I had this deep desire to accept myself just the way I am. I've also been doing work with a healer for about 9 years now.
Wow.
And because being a public figure, I think you need some kind of support, whether that's therapy or that's healing or that's something spiritual. I think everyone needs it, but all the more as a public figure, and all the more as a girl who comes from a family that has nothing to do with films. We are a middle class, traditional Tam Bram family, like they call us. And I realized that actually, as human beings, all we want is acceptance.
Yeah.
But that acceptance cannot come from the world unless we accept various facets of ourselves, we accept the good and the so-called bad, or the light and the dark within us. So I think that because I'm constantly working on that as an individual, and like I told you, my roles are giving me the opportunity also to explore that and accept myself a little more. Probably someone who's going through a similar predicament in life, finds it resonates, that role resonates with someone. And the number of women, or the number of people, I must say, who come up to me and said, Sulu, she's me. Sulu is my mother. My sister is Sulu, my wife is Sulu.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable, because it's not a conscious choice to speak to or address or to any particular person.
Yeah.
But I think it just so happens, and therefore I think also the way women's roles are written have changed over time, which is why I feel I'm in this, it's probably the best time to be a female actor in Hindi cinema, because it's so nuanced. We're being seen as people.
Women like you did movies which did very well, because let's not forget your women-centric roles. You made it. Your films were the first films that made it also commercially successful, right? Then there's more bet taken on such roles.
Yeah, as much as I want to grab that praise, I think it was also about, of course, I had this innate desire to do work where I feel like I'm at the center of my universe. So I'm not ready to play a peripheral role in my life. I'm not ready to play a peripheral role in a film.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily talking about the size of the role.
Yeah.
It is the substance of it. So I think therefore I started seeking that, especially because I felt like I was failing miserably at, playing the typical Hindi film heroines who does the songs, looks pretty and does a few scenes, is basically supporting the male actor. I failed miserably at that because I think my heart was not in it. So I think it was that desire to take center stage that I probably put out, but I was at the right place at the right time. I think, women around us had slowly begun to, it's the work of all the women who have come before us, honestly, we can't take credit for it. But I think that the tipping point was around 2008 when the script of Ishqiya came to me. And it was a very unusual role. It was a femme fatale. It was a very unusual role for me because people are only seeing me as a girl next door in the 2-3 years that I had done films for, in the first 2-3 years. And then now suddenly I was being given the role of someone who was very sexual and who rebelled in her sexuality. And I said, wow, and she was actually driving the plot, even though you don't see it like that.
Yeah.
So I thought I said, okay, this is the kind of stuff that I want to do. I was warned by some people that it would be less commercial. It was a bit hatke. But I said, forget it. If it's good, people will watch it and it'll do well. And I'm happy to say that it actually did well. And, then one step at a time, the game kept changing. But I think we were poised for that change. Because after all, cinema is a reflection of reality.
Yeah.
And around us, we're seeing more and more women take charge of their lives. At least realize that they have a right to their own lives, to their own bodies. That realization was finding expression on screen.
Tell us from your last 14 years that these are the 2-3 things, because you don't come from a film background. You don't have, you didn't have all the necessary, if I may say so, resources, accesses to be where you are. If you had to say, उसके बावजूद मैं यहाँ पहुंची और मैंने कुछ 2-3 चीजें अभी मैं कह सकती हूँ कि आप लोग, you don't have to follow, but these are the 2-3 things that worked for me. What would those 2-3 things be that you did?
I think one, I didn't let anyone else tell me that I couldn't achieve my dreams. I think early on in my career, therefore, because I started doing films in 2005, and I think by 2008, I came upon the realization, or the realization dawned on me, that if there are 10 people in a room, 10 people will have 20 different things to say. So if you're going to pay heed to that, then you'll never know who you are. and their expectations will keep changing. It's like, you know, depending on their mood, depending on the weather. So I realized that I needed to really be who that one person in the mirror was comfortable being. And it took a lot of work. It took a lot of introspection, a lot of conversation with my parents and my sister and brother-in-law. They're like the four pillars in my life. And I realized that, it's so easy to be myself. So why am I constantly wanting to be like someone else? And I'll never be like someone else. Like if I try and be like you, I can't be you because you are you. So I think that really taught me a very valuable lesson as an actor and as a public figure, that the easiest route is actually to be yourself. And that also keeps you happy. I think I come from a family where it's just us two girls. My parents, my elder sister who's 4 years older than me, Priya, and me. And we were just told that, do whatever you want to do in life, but do it to the best of your abilities. And we were never told that anything was impossible to achieve. So, and there was no pressure ever. There was no comparison with anyone else. So I think we were just living probably in a bubble, which allowed us to be exactly who we were. Of course, when you go out into the world and you realize that there are certain expectations that people want to box you because it's just more convenient, I think that comes as a bit of a jolt. Like I grew up a fat girl, but I thought I was the most beautiful girl on planet Earth. Until people began to tell me, oh, you've got such a pretty face, why don't you lose weight? And all kinds of terms get used for you. Gunda in Tamil, Moti, and then you're suddenly looking at yourself at home. Of course, my mother is very body conscious and health conscious, but I always felt beautiful. But when I stepped out into the world, I think that happens early on. In school itself, people begin to tease you, and you suddenly begin to look at yourself through the lens of, through the prism of people's, I think, perceptions or expectations or ideals. So I think I was anyway fighting that body battle for a very long time because I loved my food and I didn't like to exercise. So that was already there. And then you become an actor. And, that now people have an opinion on everything. So for someone who came in being very self-assured, I think I did go through a period of wanting to be anything but me. This was around 2007-8. I got criticized a lot for it. I couldn't process any of that because I was like, I'm doing exactly what people are telling me to do. Then why the hell are they, why the hell would they have a problem with that? Like I was going through such deep body image issues. And then the dirty picture happened to me. And what happened with the dirty picture was I was at my biggest until then, because then I became even bigger. But until then, and the dirty picture made me confront, how small I felt in my bigness. And that actually freed me, it liberated me. It just, it made me own my body.
Yeah.
However it was. Here I was oozing from everywhere and I had to wear little clothes, and I had to feel sexy, to look sexy.
Yeah.
So I think, every role in that sense, Tumhari Sunu, for example, happened to me at a time when I was probably a few years into my marriage. I was working very much, but, there's always a conflict between who you are and what conditioning tells you should be like.
Yeah.
as a daughter, as a wife, as a daughter-in-law, as whatever, the various roles that we play in life. So I think it helped me realize that it was absolutely okay for me to have that voice, even as a married woman. I didn't have a plan B, I just wanted to be an actor. But having said that, I continued my education when I was waiting for the big break. I did my BA from Xavier's, I did my MA from Mumbai University. And I said, at least I have a backup plan. Because otherwise, when it comes to survival can often push you to make the wrong choices. So, at least you keep your options open.
Yeah.
Believe that it will work out, but don't determine how it needs to work out.
Yeah.
I became an actor at the age of 26. And it's been 15 years now. And they've been a beautiful 15 years, ups and downs and lessons learned and, successes enjoyed. But I didn't, it's important to say, okay, this is not working at this point of time. Let me move away from it, or let me take a break. Or if this approach is not working, let me use another approach and see.
And your movie Shakuntala Devi is coming on Amazon Prime, right?
Yeah, on the 31st of July.
This is new world, new normal in the COVID world. How does it feel to you, and what do you have to say about it? Because I think for you also, after 14 years, this will be the first time that a movie is releasing on, an OTT.
Yeah, absolutely. 15 years ago when I started out, I didn't even know that there would be the possibility of releasing it directly onto an OTT platform. We hadn't even heard of anything like this. But I think it's great that we have the opportunity today, given the current circumstances. I think we're all trying to do what's best. We're all trying to adapt. And the only way, really, in my experience, to move forward is to adapt, because otherwise you'll become stagnant. Today, you can't say, I feel, maybe some people have the luxury to be able to wait until theaters open, maybe the big ticket films, but ours is a medium-sized film. Even when the theaters open, we probably won't get as many screens as the bigger films. So then, it's not prudent of us to wait for that time.
Yeah.
So we've done what is best for our film, because our film was ready. It was to release on the 8th of May. So this also affords us a much larger audience. And we're making the best of it. That's it.
Yeah, and we're all waiting for it.
Thank you.
Being a celebrity has taught me to hide, but being an actor has opened my soul. So, on that note, I want, because you talked about spirituality, you talked about friends, and you talked about how you have processed your journey. If I had to say, what has it meant to be an actor for you? What would you say?
I've always said this, that like I get bored of everything very easily, I probably get bored of myself if I weren't an actor and I wasn't getting to meet the various parts of me from time to time. So yes, and I am someone who actually likes to hide because I'm a very private person and I'm a homebody. And my mother sometimes turns to me and she says, I never thought you would be in such a public profession. It's almost a contradiction, because people who know me knew that, for example, my sister's the outgoing one. She'll light up a room when she walks in, and I would want to be the wallflower. And then I ended up becoming an actor. This is probably the perfect profession for me, because people say that, but you can't step out, don't you miss that? And I'm like, no, because that is the natural me. But all the fun that I want to have, that I don't have necessarily being myself. I can have being someone else or tapping into that other side of me which I can handle for a bit. It's really, I don't think I'm going to be able to leave the room because the size of my head has become really big in this interview. You've been very kind and generous. Thank you so much.
No, I've been trying to be as authentic as you are, and then I'm afraid to come because we genuinely deserve it. Thank you.
No, I genuinely enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, and God bless.